Hello, Hugo. Welcome to the fourth edition of the Data Innovation Summit here in Stockholm. And thanks to Dataiku for being yet again with us. It's a pleasure. And before we go on, please just introduce yourself shortly, your background.
Thank you, Saranda. So my name is Hugo Owen. And as you mentioned, I work at Dataiku, which is a data science and analytics platform meant for teams to collaborate around data projects. I've been working there for about 1.5 years now.
Okay, awesome. So data-driven innovation, anything, all of its part, analytics, data science, AI, machine learning, deep learning, IoT, or your company's solutions, in this case, all of it are changing the world. So can you please give us some interesting examples of turning data into actions? How is your organization helping in this?
So turning data into action is pretty interesting. The way we see it is really in two axes. One of them is reducing risk. The other one is augmenting value, right? That's turning data into actions. I want to focus on the word action. It's making things actually impact the world you live in. Get out of this POC system and get into this production system. The way Dataiku helps with that is, let's focus on two ways, let's say. The first one is inclusiveness. How does that relate to production? Well, instead of people working on their own in silos, building some really cool projects that aren't going to impact the wider company, we're going to try and bring in more skill sets, data analysts, business end users, data scientists, IT engineers, to actually help the project make a difference, to get it in production. And the second advantage, let's say, or the second element we try to really help companies on is speed, right? Getting all these people together, getting this hive mind to collaborate typically increases the speed of any projects, raises potential issues faster, and ultimately, hopefully, brings that value, brings that ROI and that transformation faster to your company.
Okay, so let's talk a bit more about the challenges, the outcomes of, from your perspective, of course, what are some of the biggest hinders, challenges that organizations face when it comes to data-driven innovation, and what would some of the implications be of not solving these issues?
So the one word that you keep hearing and that we've been hearing over the past several years is silos. Siloed, siloed, siloed. So you've got siloed data and technology. So starting with technology, you've got different generations of software, different generations of infrastructure that weren't built to speak to each other. Then you've got siloed data. Certain companies, certain technologies are intent in keeping data private or closed rather than open. You've got siloed people, and that's the biggest one, I think. The one that people are starting to realize now is that having a team of very competent, very strong data scientists not talking to the BI analysts or not talking to the end users, and even worse, not talking to engineers, not talking to the IT people, the guys who govern all of this, creates siloed results or lack of results. Because going back to our previous questions, we're talking about impacting, right? We're talking about deploying in production. The final one is siloed processes, in the sense that marketing teams, finance teams, and so on and so forth, they've grown on their own, they've grown independent from each other, and they're now deduplicating their work, they're not sharing it, they're not making the most of it as a team. You mentioned the impacts afterwards. The results of that, we've already mentioned. I'd rather maybe speak about what I'd encourage them to do, if that's all right. You know, we mentioned siloed data, siloed technology. Well, I would say embrace openness and inclusiveness. I'm not saying throw everything out for open source. I'm saying put yourself in a position where your different generations of technology, your different generations of data, and then your different generations and profiles of people can link with each other, can collaborate with each other, right? That's the big ask and the big recommendation. Because if you don't, you're not going to be able to have that impact at scale within the organization.
So my next question was actually about asking what would you suggest to the new organizations, but it's fine. So part of this you mentioned, but what would be some of your suggestions when technology is considered? Because how can it help? What big part technology plays in it to ease all of this process of the data innovation?
So in terms of data and technology, again, I'm not saying throw everything out and start from fresh, but just put yourself in the position of thinking, what has come before? What are we using that is considered a legacy system that is probably going to be phased out? What are we using now? And what are the chances that we're going to be cycling out of that and into something new pretty soon? Every single person who's been in the industry for 10 or 15 years will tell you that there's been several changes.
Yes.
So put yourself in the mindset where you need to provide for what's happened, keep business as usual growing and rolling, and make sure that whatever happens next, you'll be open to it. Not necessarily super ready because you can't predict the future, but open to it. That's where technology can help in remaining open, in creating a layer of abstraction or a layer of interconnection between these different generations of data and technologies. Likewise for people, it'd be great if when Python came on the scene, you could have all your employees know how to code in Python. That's not realistic. So you need to find paths to enable your existing teams to upskill themselves, to learn these new technologies, these new elements. Just like you can't switch an IT engineer who is an expert in SQL into an IT engineer who's an expert in NoSQL technologies, you need to make sure that they're trained and that they're smoothly enabled to transition in that. That's also somewhere technology can truly help.
Okay, so Hugo, the next question is about the technology in practice sessions. There were two that you guys delivered Dataiku for our delegates today. One on putting your data science pipeline in production, and one on deploying image recognition model from scratch. Can you please shortly recap?
Yeah. So the first one, deploying a data science model in production, the objective was to show the imperative of, again, thinking ahead, of not thinking in POC or test or trial mode, but making sure, being aware that there's a lot of difficulty and pitfalls in actually, again, this word impact, and actually impacting your business at scale. So we wanted to show that with the right tools, you could have all these different profiles, not just super expert IT engineers, govern the process of deploying and updating models, projects in production, even if you're not an expert. If you're giving the right tools and if you're given the right space in which to deploy yourself, in which to grow, you can do this in a safe, scalable manner. The second workshop was about doing an image recognition model from scratch. And the goal behind that one was to show how this technology, whatever we call machine learning, data science, needs to be more inclusive, right? We're talking about taking these capabilities, which everybody here, all the delegates know are transformative, taking these technologies, these competencies out of the hands of the many and putting them into the hands of the few. Now, this is not for democracy's sake, it's more for realism's sake. There aren't enough talented, experienced data scientists and IT engineers to fill HR directors' desires, right? So we need to get the people that are already in the companies, we need to get the wider population up to speed and capable of building these complex things. We picked image recognition because it's kind of a fun project, but that's true for any type of project.
Thanks. One last question I have, Hugo. Looking at the data-driven innovation from a future perspective, can you tell us what would your suggestions be? What can we expect in the near future? In the near future,
in the next 6 to 12 months, I expect some big innovations in terms of processing power in database or in terms of new engines. That's one thing that I really expect is going to arrive because the pace of innovation is just increasing and increasing. I also expect that infrastructure management is going to become even more complex as the pace of innovation increases, because you've still got these legacy systems. You've got these newer tranches that are just being added up and added up and added up. And so infrastructure management and creating a layer of abstraction over that to manage the slow transition in a seamless way is going to become even more important. Those are the two big elements that I believe are going to happen, or at least are going to become more relevant in the industry's mind, let's say. The last one, I guess I just realized, is this willingness of increasing the number of people working in data science and in data analytics at companies. You can see it with all the micro degrees on a worldwide scale. People are becoming more interested in this, and it's a groundswell. It's not just experts owning this knowledge. It has to spread out.
Awesome. Hugo, thank you very much. Thanks to Dataiku for joining us, and thank you for conducting this interview.
Thank you very much.